I can tell you with absolute certainty that the deep-seated resentment and hatred that's making you tremble with anger right now, the kind that makes you feel like you'll never get over it, from a purely biological perspective, only lasts 90 seconds, not a second more. The remaining decades are all drama you've added yourself, as if you'd feel cheated if you weren't the scriptwriter. Doesn't that sound incredibly harsh? You might want to turn off this video right now, pointing at the screen and cursing me, saying, "What do you know? Do you know what that bastard did to me? Do you know how much I've suffered?" That's right, I don't know, and I don't need to know, because whether that bastard lied to you, cheated you out of money, or betrayed your feelings, your body's true reaction to this event only lasts that minute and a half. Even the anger you feel right now upon hearing my words, that anger has a limited physiological lifespan. It doesn't exceed 90 seconds. This is a fact that has long been established in the field of neuroscience. When your brain's amygdala sounds the alarm, whether it's because you see a tiger or that relative who owes you money and hasn't paid it back, your hypothalamus immediately orders the release of cortisol and adrenaline, these fight or flight hormones, into your bloodstream. This is a purely chemical reaction. But the key is that these chemicals circulate, metabolize, and are eventually completely eliminated from the body in just 90 seconds. Even for a deep-seated grudge, the physiological peak of anger only lasts 90 seconds. So the question is, since your body has already completed the detoxification process after a minute and a half, why do you still feel your heart racing and your hands and feet turning cold when you think about something unpleasant your mother-in-law said 2 years ago? Why do you still replay that scene in your mind, even when you're alone in the shower, and design 100 clever lines to retort with, even 5 years after your boss gave you a dirty look? If that chemical reaction has already ended, who is fueling this anger now? The answer is cruel, it's you. You feel that 90 seconds wasn't enough, that you'd be losing out if you just let the emotion pass. So you utilize a uniquely human, both great and foolish, ability, rumination. We live in a vast, illusory theater pieced together from fragments of memories. Humans are such interesting creatures. We pride ourselves on being the masters of all things. But most of the time we live like broken tape recorders. Observe the people around you, or better yet, observe yourself tonight when it's late and quiet. When you're lying in bed, even though your body is exhausted, your brain starts broadcasting. You replay the trivial events of the day. Even something as insignificant as someone stepping on your foot on the subway without apologizing, and project it onto the giant screen of your mind. You don't just replay it, you refine it. You add dramatic lighting to the other person's face and provide a tragic soundtrack to your own feelings of injustice. You're going to embellish the conversation that took place, making yourself seem more innocent and the other person more despicable. Every time you replay it in your mind, your brain can't distinguish between memory and reality. So it dutifully releases cortisol again. The original 90 seconds have long passed, but you've artificially extended those 90 seconds into 90 minutes, 90 days, or even 90 years through this self-hypnotic replay. What is this called? In medicine, it's called chronic stress. In psychology, it's called rumination. But in my opinion, it's a form of active self-indulgence. To put it bluntly, it's an addiction. You're addicted to suffering. You think you hate that person, but in reality, you're enjoying the dramatic feeling of being a victim. This feeling makes you feel morally superior, giving you a clear sense of identity in this indifferent universe, that of a good person who has been wronged. To maintain this identity, you must constantly inject yourself with this poison, even if it causes high blood pressure, heart disease, insomnia, and hair loss. You're willing to pay any price. Consider the classic Zen koan. An old monk and a young monk are walking down a mountain path when they encounter a river. A beautiful young woman is afraid to cross. Without a word, the old monk carries her across the river, sets her down, and continues on his way. The young monk follows behind, seething with resentment, his mind racing with thoughts more dramatic than any soap opera. He thinks, didn't the master say that men and women shouldn't touch each other? Then, did the master break his vows? Then, should I report the master? After walking for dozens of miles, as dusk approaches, the young monk finally explodes, questioning the old monk. Monks shouldn't be near women. How could you carry that woman? The old monk calmly looks at his sweaty, breathless, and foolish disciple and says, I put that woman down when we crossed the river. Why are you still carrying her? We've all heard this story 100 times and laughed, thinking we understood it. But you haven't understood it. If you did, you wouldn't still be carrying that woman, that burden of resentment, that unresolved grievance, that moment of not receiving an apology. For decades after the other person has forgotten how they offended you. Was the young monk tired? Yes, but who caused that fatigue? He did. There was no real woman on his back during those dozens of miles. It was the projector in his brain that he couldn't turn off. The old monk lived in the present moment, responding to the events of those 90 seconds. The young monk is a typical modern human, living with that endless second arrow. The Buddha once asked his disciples, if a person is struck by an arrow and feels pain, that's the first arrow. Then, because of being struck by the arrow, they feel sadness, anger, and fear, crying and wailing, asking the heavens, why me? This is called the second arrow. Which arrow do you think hurts more? Of course, it's the second one. The first arrow is physical pain. The inevitable physiological response of those 90 seconds, a result of circumstances, someone's words or actions impacting your senses. That's unavoidable, that's what's called fate. But the second arrow is you, on top of that physical pain, picking it up yourself and stabbing it into your own heart. And the scariest thing is that the first arrow usually only strikes once, while this second arrow is pulled out and stabbed in again and again, a cycle repeated hundreds of times. We always say that fate plays tricks on us, but in reality, God is quite busy and doesn't have time to specifically mess with you. Most of the time, you're messing with yourself. You turn a one-time injury into a lifelong wound. What kind of mentality is this? It's a mentality that is not only cruel to oneself but also extremely arrogant. Do you think your suffering is special? Do you think your experiences are unprecedented? You're wrong. Your anger, jealousy, and resentment are merely the pathetic survival mechanisms left over from hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution. Your brain, in order to help you survive in this dangerous primeval jungle, evolved a negative bias. It always makes you prioritize remembering bad things and ignore good things. Because not remembering where there are fruits to eat only means missing a meal, but not remembering where there are tigers means losing your life. Therefore, remembering pain is a biological instinct. What's even more interesting is that we not only like to replay the pain, but we also beautify this repetition as deep affection or principles. Some people will say, I'm a straightforward person, I can't tolerate injustice, or I can never forgive betrayal. Listen to how tough and principled that sounds. But if you peel away this beautiful wrapping paper, what's inside? It's a fragile, vulnerable self. This self is too weak. It must prove its correctness by clinging to others' mistakes. It must confirm its own wrongness by clinging tightly to past wounds. If one day I ask you to let go of all your resentment, to clear your mind of all thoughts of how others have wronged you, you would suddenly discover a shocking truth. You wouldn't know who you are anymore. If you didn't hate your ex-husband, if you didn't resent your parents, if you didn't curse your boss, that incessant voice in your head would suddenly stop. And that immense emptiness would terrify you. So often, it's not that we can't let go of the pain, but that we're afraid to let go. We'd rather cling to pain than embrace nothingness. This is the absurdity of human nature. We cry out for happiness while desperately clinging to the life raft of pain, refusing to let go and then complaining that the water is too cold. So what do? Should we be like a fool, turning the other cheek when someone slaps us? Or should we be like an emotionless robot, indifferent to everything that happens? Of course not. That's suppression, another form of self-torture. True liberation isn't forcing yourself not to get angry, but seeing through the essence of this drama. You can try this. The next time that moment that makes your blood pressure skyrocket arrives, or when that damn relative says that classic nonsense at the dinner table, don't rush to get angry. And don't rush to suppress it. Just conduct an experiment in your mind. Start a stopwatch. Tell yourself, okay, the physiological reaction has begun. 90-second countdown. Even if you're smiling on the outside, or even if you're banging on the table, keep one eye on the process in your mind. You'll feel your heart rate accelerating. Blood rushing to your head, sweaty palms, a tight throat. Just observe these reactions like watching a storm outside the window. You'll find that as long as you stop adding fuel to the fire, that is, stop the internal calculations, stop judging, stop wondering if they look down on you, this energy will truly recede like a tide. It rises up, then recedes, and in this process, the hardest part isn't enduring the anger, but enduring the loneliness of not adding fuel to the fire. Your brain will frantically tempt you to think of something to insult him, to recall last year's unpleasant incidents, to imagine him as a demon. At this point, what you need to do is to look at your brain like you would look at a spoiled child throwing a tantrum and demanding a toy. In this interval, you will discover a freedom you've never experienced before. This freedom isn't because you've forgiven someone, but because you suddenly realize that you don't have to be that automatic reaction machine. You realize that between stimulus and response, there really is a gap, and that gap is your true sanctuary. Of course, I know this is difficult. It's like being a heavy smoker for decades and suddenly being told to quit. You feel like you don't know what to do with your hands. We have a decades-long addiction to reacting, to creating new dramas. Sometimes you feel that if you don't fight back, if you don't clarify the situation, the sky will fall. But let me ask you a more pointed question. Is the victory you achieve worth the loss of your vascular elasticity? You've killed that person 1,000 times in your mind, but in reality, they remain completely unharmed, even enjoying themselves, while you suffer from cortisol poisoning and can't sleep at night. Who really wins in this equation? Zhuangzi had a particularly interesting analogy called the empty boat theory. He said that if you're rowing a boat across a river and another boat crashes into you, you're about to get angry and yell at the person, but then you look closely and realize the boat is empty, there's no one in it. At that moment, your anger instantly disappears. Why? Because there's no one to direct your anger at. But if there were someone in the boat, you would yell at them, calling them blind. You see, what makes you angry isn't the collision itself, but the concept of there being someone in the boat. If you can understand that everyone in this world who causes you pain is actually like that empty boat, a hollow shell driven by their karma, their genes, their upbringing, and their uncontrolled emotions, would you still be so angry? The person who speaks harshly to you is also a victim, a slave to their emotions. Why would you argue with a slave? Treat others as empty boats, and treat yourself as an empty boat too. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't treat your pride, your dignity, that illusory sense of self, as something sacred and inviolable. When you see yourself as an empty vessel, anger passes through you like wind through a valley. There might be a sound, but it leaves no trace. This sounds profound, doesn't it? Like something a wise sage would say? But in reality, this is the ultimate pragmatism. In this era full of uncertainty, noise, and conflict, protecting your own energy field and preventing these toxic emotions from festering within you is the greatest act of self-compassion. You spend so much money on organic food and so much time at the gym, only to turn around and drink a large bowl of self-brewed emotional poison. Isn't that ridiculous? So stop being fooled by those 90 seconds. It's just a brief malfunction of the body, an automatic cleansing process of the system. Don't be the one who picks up the garbage and eats it again. Next time you think of that infuriating past event, try to smile, even if it's a cynical smile. Smile at yourself, still performing anger like a puppet on strings in that scene. In that one smile, the vicious cycle is broken. You don't need to deliberately forgive anyone, nor do you need to force yourself to be a saint. Just be an observer, watching the fire burn, watching it burn out, watching the ashes fall, and then turn around and pour yourself a glass of water. Go about your business. The person who hurt you, the event that caused you pain, is actually dead after those 90 seconds. If you still carry the corpse on your back, that's your choice, not fate's arrangement. Now that this video is almost over, the chemicals in your brain should have mostly metabolized, and the voice that's been chattering incessantly in this channel is about to disappear. What's left? A blank space. This blank space might feel a little strange, a little boring, or even a little bewildering. Don't rush to fill it. Let this blank space linger for a while, because only here are you truly alive.